in love with the fact that Black girl tech. So I have a daughter. She is not the average. And I think society has led us to believe that you have to fit into this little box and be like this pretty, prissy little girl. But she has been doing experiments as long as I can remember. And so for a woman of your caliber and the work that you do, you are definitely not only an inspiration to me, but to her as well. So thank you, first and foremost.
Well, you're welcome, and thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely. So some of the questions that I had that I don't think can wait until November is around COVID and just, so a little background. I am part of the Boston Coalition for COVID-19 and the Black Boston, specifically Black Boston Coalition for COVID-19. And we are being asked as a group to represent a few companies or to give information to our community about, these vaccines that are coming out, but yet we don't have a relationship with the medical professionals that created the vaccine or are, looking into the study of the vaccine. And there's a few Black professionals that are involved, but I feel like as far as like on the pharmaceutical level, where your company has products right now, the first question is COVID anywhere on your radar as far as moving forward with trials or vaccines or specifically testing or trying medications out on Black people, since you guys are a Black pharmaceutical company?
So it's an interesting question. First of all, let me just add a little balance that we're developing therapeutics, not vaccines. So our drug is designed to treat patients. The 80% or the greater than 80% of patients who are mildly, moderately infected with COVID-19 and designed for those who are asymptomatic. Okay, so we're not focused on the 20% who become hospitalized, have to be on ventilators, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So is that clear as far as you're developing a treatment? Do you know the difference? And I'm asking a very sincere question.
No. That was actually going to be my follow-up question, because even if I did understand, which I do not, I can imagine there are a million Americans that do not understand the difference.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. If your house was on fire, would you want the fire department to come or fire inspector?
The fire department.
That's right. So Ennaid Therapeutics, we're much like the fire department when it comes to COVID-19, because we are putting the virus out if you get it. Mm-hmm. A vaccine is much like the fire inspector in that they give you all of the necessary tools to never get a fire. Just because you've had a fire inspector come and give you the tools doesn't mean you still won't get the fire. There's a great example with the measles. We've had a very effective measles vaccine since the 60s, 1964, if I recollect correctly. And yet, within the last 3 to 5 years, we've had a measles outbreak here in the United States as well as in Europe. And it caused a very big uproar because the outbreak was, one of the outbreaks were noted at one of the famous Disney parks. And so either Disney or Universal, so don't quote me on that, but it indeed caused quite some issues. Now, if we had a measles therapeutic, a treatment for it, when those outbreaks happened, they could have been treated immediately. Okay? Mm-hmm. So that should give you a good idea of what we're doing within Ennaid Therapeutics. Now, the second way I want to add balance to what you said is, while we're developing a treatment for COVID-19, that would be our first product on the market. We have a plethora of products in our pipeline, About 17 to be exact. Most are in infectious diseases, so COVID and coronavirus. And many of them are focused on mosquito-borne viruses, such as West Nile virus, dengue virus, Zika, etc. And then we have a couple of oncology products. Well, we have an oncology product focused on colorectal cancer. And we're starting, and we anticipate to have a ready-for-marketed product by year's end for COVID-19. So we're very excited about that. Now, you asked me about our focus on people of color. Okay. I happen to be a Black female, and I do think what we're doing is wonderful. Not just because I'm Black, but because the world needs a lot of solutions. The world wants a lot of solutions to COVID-19, and we have what the world wants, and that we have a solution. Many solutions will be needed. As far as our clinical trial goes, I have a chief clinical officer who is actually making, with my collaboration as well, the decision of where we're going to do what we anticipate will be a phase 3 clinical trial where we actually test our drug in human subjects. And we have not decided on which population. Are they going to be predominantly Black? Are they going to be predominantly of a different race? What we are making our selection on is some of the hardest areas that have research hospitals with clinical research doctors, clinical research nurses who are skilled in conducting clinical trials. Okay, our trial will be unique, and it may even be a global trial. We may go abroad with it. We're going to make those firm decisions in the next few weeks. The unique thing about our trial is that because our drug is a capsule, so it's, tablets, capsules, this is a capsule, we've designed a phase 3 clinical trial that's in-home self-dosing. So a patient is diagnosed with a mild case or moderate case of COVID-19 infection. They are sent home to quarantine, and they're told to rest, maybe take Tylenol for a fever reducer, drink plenty of liquids, but stay quarantined for at least, 10 days, 2 weeks. I think the quarantine is 14 days now. Well, since they're sent home anyway, they'll be able to enroll in our clinical trial and take our meds and be able to still stay quarantined while doing it because of our clinical reporting software, which is an Ennaid software. So we own the software. It is app-based or web-based, very user-friendly, and from their handheld or their laptop, they can report each time they take a dose based on the protocol and have lifetime talks with the clinician at the hospital running the clinical trial for us. So we've got a very unique design trial that is going to help reduce contagion of COVID-19, as well as help patients potentially get well because they'll have a product that can allow them to do so. So that's where we are. Does that answer all those questions right there?
It does, but it also rolls in a plethora of other questions. So I don't want to say you've created a cure, but in a sense, I don't think the listeners understand as well is the different phases. So what do clinical trial phase 1, 2, 3, what do those phases represent? And how close or how far from an actual cure is this medication?
We anticipate that we could have a ready-to-market product by December of this year. We do like to use the terms together, therapeutic cure. Here's what I mean. You can be cured of the common cold. Doesn't mean you won't get another cold, but you can be cured of it, right? So we often do talk about therapeutic cures. And so it's okay to use that language, in my opinion. I think sometimes when we're talking to regulatory agencies like the FDA, we may use those terms a little less freely and stick to terms of therapeutic or treatment, and not add on the word cure. But again, we within Ennaid, we often talk about therapeutic cures because, again, you can, for example, be cured of a common cold. So that's what a cure is. Yeah. In some cases, in cures, you may not get the disease again. You know, you've heard people being cured of cancer and then the cancer comes back. You know, so that's, I think, a thorough explanation of it. Therapeutic cures. So there you have it. Any other questions around vaccines versus therapeutics? And
I certainly do. But to stay on topic really quickly, so there was a video that recently came out of an African doctor, and you know, she's being dubbed a witch and being called a voodoo doctor, and you know, demon sperm and all this other things, but no one's focusing on the fact that she proclaims that out of her 350 patients that she's seen with COVID, not one has died based on this drug that she has given them.
Hydroxy. Is she the African doctor?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen the video.
Based on what
it's hydroxychloroquine.
Yes.
The anti-malarial drug.
Correct. Based on what her statements, how is what she's saying factual in your opinion? And is any of this drug that she's mentioning part of the therapeutic cure that your company has created?
No, we're not doing anything with hydroxychloroquine at all.
Okay.
Now, I am not able to make definitive statements on her patient population and her clinical success with hydroxychloroquine. I do know legally she has the right to prescribe it off-label, and that's what she's been doing. I have not reviewed any of her caseloads to make an opinion, to form an opinion. And all I do is go on what she says. I do know what some of the warnings are on hydroxychloroquine. And I tend to side with infectious diseases experts, being that I'm in a field focused on infectious diseases. And the experts say that there's not enough clinical evidence to condone its long-term safety in patients with COVID-19. Now, I don't know how and why she's having success, but she says she is. And if it's a solution that works for her, in the disregard of the major side effects of hydroxychloroquine, then it works for her. Yeah, but my company will not be doing any development around hydroxychloroquine. And we always side with the nation's top infectious diseases experts, like Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Okay. One of the things that we know historically is Black people have been experimented on for hundreds of years, and still our government, as well as Johns Hopkins, has to this day still engaged in practices that some may deem unethical when it comes to not just vaccines, but testing in other countries. With all of these companies coming out with different vaccines, and when it comes to trials and, clinical trials and people volunteering, they're seeing, maybe 300 volunteers of white race, and then maybe 2 or no more than 5 of Black, Latino, other. What, if you know any, how as a Black person can I safeguard myself from saying, yes, I do want a vaccine. I do want to protect myself and my children. And I think I want to be a part of this trial. But at the same time, I don't know, they don't know long-term effects. Where's the happy medium or the happy balance to, I want to protect myself, but I also want to protect my future?
Well, I think when it comes to a situation like this, you have to make an educated decision balanced with a medical decision. If we know how vaccines are made, the typical timeline for a vaccine to be made, that's the medical part of it. And then there's still no guarantees. If you listen to any of the press releases, Dr. Fauci has made that clear. Once a vaccine is out, well, that's the medical balance to it. And then there's an educated balance to it. Well, I think that's a bit of the medical and educated balance to it. And then you have to look at your moral balance. So there's a 3-pronged equation here, if you will. And the moral part of it is, do I want to suscept myself and or my family to something that we don't know if it's going to work? We don't know if long-term this vaccine is going to be safe. And so since we don't know that, why not just take all the necessary precautions that some very wise authorities like the Centers for Disease Control, for example, have laid out for our nation, and that is wear a mask in public. If you have certain symptoms, go get tested and quarantine. If you go to another city, come back to your city, quarantine, whether you're symptomatic or not. Always, always, always wear a mask for yourself, your safety and the safety of others. I think those are the precautions we can take because there's so many unknowns around the vaccine. Mm-hmm. So again, the moral part of that, the educated part of that, and the medicine part of that, those are the 3 prongs. So, you can't rush good science. That's the bottom line. I told that to my team just Friday. Good science just cannot be rushed. And vaccines typically take much longer than therapeutics. And I think the last I heard, I haven't read any details, but they're anticipating the vaccine by the end of this year. I'm thinking, what? We went from 18 to 24 months to the end of this year? All right. Just remember that 3-pronged approach. Morals to be included, So I support all of my colleagues and counter colleagues being those who are scientists at different companies, CEOs at different companies. I support them all because, the world has come together and we're doing what it takes to offer the many solutions that will be needed for COVID-19. Mm-hmm. So that's where we are. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It does answer my question. So this was a statement that my son made, and usually he makes inappropriate statements all the time, but this one actually made me wonder and had me questioning, you might be onto something. So the statement was, Mom, why do I have to wear a mask if I can have underwears, shorts, and jeans? And if I fart, you can still smell it. So how does, a mask cover up trying germs coming in if I can still smell your breath or I can still smell the food through the mask?
Well, that's where the kind of mask that you're wearing, like the N95 or the NK, I think 95 mask that has the filters built in it, then the whole mask acts as if it's a filter, to filter out, to not allow the filtering out or the filtering in, of that matter, of COVID-19 particles in the air, because it's an airborne disease, which is why it's so highly contagious and highly transmissible, because of it being airborne. Now, I don't think there are any studies that support gut aeration, if you will, of the spread of the COVID from gut aeration. Actually, there is none, because I know the virus does not live in an acidic environment. If the virus is ingested, I don't think it holds up well in an acidic environment, which is the stomach environment, if I recollect correctly. But the bottom line is, I think we could maybe keep that part of the record, but there are no studies that I know of where rectal aeration is a cause of the virus's spread. Yeah, it's droplets in the air from the mouth. But studies are ongoing to see if it can be passed through other airways.
When people are saying, so there's studies out that say wearing a mask, breathing your own breath, is causing people illness and sickness, and you're not supposed to be breathing your own, what you let out. That's the reason why
it's okay to breathe your own air. It is. You're protecting yourself with the mask, with the right mask, and you're protecting others. There are a lot of conspiracy theories out there. I can tell you what, wearing a mask is a precaution to keep you safe, you and your family. Minimal socialization. If you do, make sure you're 6 to 8 feet apart. And if you do have a bubble of people that you surround yourself with, like, say, your son, if you have a significant other, a spouse, daughter, or, a relative or two, or a friend or two that you see sometimes, let that be your social bubble, and those things have worked. We've noticed spikes in many cases in times where people have rallied around and gone to parties and things like that. We can prevent that until we have solutions that are marketed. And I will tell you, scientists from all over the world have come together, and we are marketing, and we are developing so we can get to market therapeutics and vaccines that will help not annihilate the virus, that will help control the virus so that our new normal can get back to normal. Yeah.
How long do you think we'll be wearing masks for?
Well, maybe the next 9 months or less.
When
get fun and creative with it. I know we're doing masks with our company logos on them. Not logos, but we have our own fabric, and I've got some masks coming to me that are with my alma mater on it. So get creative with it. Start matching your mask to your outfit if you want. It's a way to be fashionable, if you will. Louis Vuitton has masks. So, let's make fun out of it until which time we don't have to do this. I can tell you what, it's not a forever thing. That's for sure. Yeah. So there is hope, Tayla. There is much hope.
So right
for
now,
not just the Black community, for everybody. Because I tell you what, God forbid, but if something happened and you needed a kidney transplant, the last thing you care about is what their race was, what their ethnicity was, or is, who donated that. And you take their kidney because it's a match, So really, we break it down as there's a black race, white race, blah, blah, blah. When there's one human race, whether your ethnicity is Asian or Black or Caucasian or Middle Eastern, Israeli, Mexican, you name it, Hispanic, it's still one race. And that's what we've got to keep our focus on, because as Ennaid develops our COVID-19 therapeutic, we're making it available to all, not just Black people first, to everyone. And it's going to be affordable to everyone. So we're making sure Black people can afford it. Okay? Yeah. And so I don't think life is as bad as it seems, if you will. And again, there's hope. Companies like Ennaid Therapeutics, we're bringing hope. Companies like Gilead, they brought hope. And other companies around the world, they're bringing hope. Yeah.
So if we are currently, going back to the first question you asked me, if we are currently in a burning house, why is the focus on bringing in the inspector when we're not seeking out the fire department? Like, why is the focus in the media with medical professionals isn't, let's focus on, Ennaid's therapeutic cure, but let's focus on getting you a vaccine?
Yeah. So the trend, the idea of public health is that it's always been what's the least expensive way to bring relief to the community. That's why vaccines exist now. Okay? Because it's the least expensive way, again, to bring vaccines to the community. And it's been a staple in the world since, many, many, many decades ago. But what we know is that it takes a plethora of not just vaccines, but therapeutics as well, in order to annihilate or get under control these diseases. So why are you hearing in global, on the news all day, every day is vaccine, is because that's the least expensive way to get a solution to the public, is by vaccinating them from the disease. That's the simple answer.
Which is a conflicting answer for me, because you just made a statement about how the therapeutic cure is going to be affordable, and affordable enough that even, the poor can afford it. And Madeira just recently came out and said that they're charging $50 to $60 for a vaccine. I'm not sure where your price point is, but for me, it doesn't make sense. We're like, let's get the vaccine, but we have a low mortality rate. So those that are dying from COVID are, on the scale of high risk to begin with. And then there's been a few instances of young people that were 100% healthy that maybe had underlying that haven't surfaced. And so I don't understand why there's not an active visual of hope in the form of a therapeutic cure, and so much language and talk around vaccine only. So aside from our conversation today.
Well, that's because, again, maybe we'll be the ones that sneak in with the therapeutic, no, there are therapeutics out there. The product from Gilead for the critically ill patients, that's a therapeutic. It's a treatment, not a vaccine. It costs about, over close to $3,000, if not over. But that's their price, and that's what they're charging. We've not gotten the pricing yet, but we won't be charging anything atrocious like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But, it just is what it is. We can't change the way the media wants to focus. I tend to decline most interviews. This is a rarity that I'm talking to you because I don't have anything to prove to anyone. And so I don't have an argument to make. I don't have I have a story to tell. They can just go to my website.
Mm-hmm. Well, I absolutely thank you for your time, and to get a perspective from a Black professional that is in the field. I think it's one thing for you to be a researcher and for you to, have all of this data and the numbers, but it's completely different when you are the pharmaceutical company themselves. And so I speak into your life, growth, worldwide growth, because I do think we need more people that just understanding that there are medications that don't work for certain people, because a lot of times we're not part of those tests or trials or what have you. And then our biology, as much as we are all one human race, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, the way we absorb certain drugs and, our melanin tends to deflect others. From what I understand, again, I have absolutely no medical history, no medical background, but this is just from what I've read that, when it comes to blood pressure medication or heart medication, even though they have worked for so many, there are a lot of Black and brown people that these medications don't work for. And so I never meant to imply only for Black people, but with an Afrocentric lens on how our bodies are different.
Well, I don't think, I think that's a bit of a fallacy. Again, a Black kidney can work in a white patient just fine. What I think are some differences are lifestyle choices. So some common meds that are prescribed, like, I'll use the brand name, Lipitor, for lowering cholesterol. It can have different results in a Black person than a white person because of lifestyle. Your cholesterol is based more on lifestyle, not so much as the natural genetics of your buildup and your makeup. So typically medicines, because all of our organs are the same, we all have, with the exception of any type of medical deficits, a normal healthy person has the same normal healthy organs and veins and fluids going and moving throughout their bodies than the next person. So I think that's a big fallacy that certain meds work better on Blacks than they do on whites. No, a lot of medicine that people take happens to deal with how they balance their lifestyle. Yeah. And COVID-19 is no respecter of persons. I think some of the things we've heard in the news about it being hard hit in the African American community is possibly because in the African American community, we are prone to other issues in the African community that doesn't one is more likely because they're they're of the African community, African American community. That doesn't mean that they're more likely to contract COVID-19. It simply means that there may be some comorbidity. So maybe we have to deal with high blood pressure and the COVID-19 infection. Maybe we have to deal with high cholesterol and the COVID-19 infection. Maybe we have to deal with something to do with heart disease and the COVID-19 infection. But I don't know if a study has been done. Who's to say that African Americans are still leading the nation in having the highest cholesterol of all groups, having the highest blood pressure of all groups? I don't know when the last study was done to see, but I do know the American diet alone tends to have a lot of those things. High cholesterol, typically, not for all, high blood pressure. That's just a matter of the American diet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, but I have surely enjoyed our time.
Thank you so much. I have one final question that has nothing to do with COVID. So my mom was born in the generation where you got stuck in your arm, and they still have the scar of the 15 different shots, and it looks like a scab. Like it looks like a scar, but it was a vaccine that was given during.
Yeah. I think my mom has that same thing. She was born in the 40s.
And so I missed that generation. But the schedule of vaccines that I had was different from the schedule of vaccines that my mom had, which is completely different from the schedule of vaccines that children today have. So we know that, we evolve, we grow, we learn, and we add to our repertoire of knowledge. These vaccines should be added. But we've also seen a rise in Alzheimer's, autism, and other diseases that prior to the change of vaccine schedules were not in abundance. The ADHDs, the allergies, like back in the 70s and 80s, we didn't have these astronomical numbers. Now we have these new schedules, we have these new ailments. I'm not asking whether or not you believe the two are linked. I'm asking, is there a possibility that we have not done our due diligence as far as long-term effects, while these medications could be altering our DNA as humans, and I don't know. For me, I know there's like a lot of conspiracy theorists, but for me, it's too close of a parallel. And what do you say to parents that do have these questions and, never received an HPV vaccine, but doesn't, they're being pressured by their doctor to give it to their child, and with a pairing of, what do you have to say to parents that are anti-vaxxers as a whole? That's a loaded question. I'm sorry.
I think you have to do that three-pronged approach again. Morals/values. I just added that word. Medical and education. And take it from there. There are no studies that link vaccines to abnormalities in the behavior of children. There are no extensive studies that do link that. Maybe a company should. I don't know. We're not a vaccine company, so that just is not our area. Maybe the answer is that what some parents do is they truncate the vaccines. They don't vaccinate all at once. And so it's just a matter of choice. It really is. Weighing those morals/values with education and medicine. Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thank you so much for your time. I thank you for opening the line. You stated very clearly that you typically don't take interviews, so I do appreciate this honor and this pleasure. And if it's okay with you, I would like to keep our standing November date after we go through some clinical trials, we get some vaccines, we kind of come to a different understanding of what we're dealing with COVID, and some time has passed.
Therapeutics. We get therapeutics, not vaccines.
Oh, absolutely. I just meant as a global society.
Gotcha. Okay. Got you. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk again around that time. Okay. Thank you so much, Tayla, and thanks for your patience.
No worries. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So that was, I believe you saw the scrolling down below, but that was Darnisha Grant Harrison of Ennaid Therapeutics. And I just found an article where it says Black women may have discovered cure to coronavirus. And so it's weird to me that our focus is so much on these vaccines. And again, she said the media is going to focus on what the media is going to focus on, but there's a possibility, and it's being not advertised, but the medical community is saying this woman may have discovered a cure to coronavirus. But yet we are doing so much talking about getting a vaccine instead of focusing on, I have it, I may have it, let's take it. And you know what? One of the questions I meant to ask that I didn't get to, and trust, we went way over the time limit that she gave us, was whether or not everyone should just take the cure. Instead of taking the vaccine, shouldn't everyone just take the cure? The vaccine kind of gives you the disease. So why not prevent from getting it by, I don't know. Science and medicine is not my strong suit. It's not what I went to school for. I did have questions. Those were the answers that we received from Ms. Harrison. And I look forward to see what her company rolls out with as far as the therapeutic solution or therapeutic cure. I'm excited to see what's next. And I'm confident that what she said as far as maybe in the next 9 months, we don't have to wear a mask anymore, and we should be good. This isn't going to last forever. Now that she's off the line, I have this slew of questions because I also want to know, why not just hurry up and get it? Why not put yourself in the line of fire and just get it and allow my body to create the antibodies that it needs and strengthen my immune system, and period. I honestly believe that my children, we got really, really sick. So disclosure, I'm an anti-vaxxer. My youngest has never been stuck with a needle. Saria is 14. She got her schedule until 8 months, and Anari was 2 years old when the last time he got vaccinated, and they shot him 6 times. And he got really, really sick. His behavior started changing. And that was the day that I made the decision that I was not what happened in that course of a week is without knowledge, without reading studies, without, with my own eyes, I saw something that I did not like. And so I made the decision that this day forward, y'all are not getting a vaccine, you're not getting shot with a needle. And my children never get sick. My nieces and nephews always have this in that. And, my kids are never sick. So when we got really, really sick as a family in March, it was like an anomaly. It was a complete anomaly. Even the baby got sick. And it's just everyone in my house was miserable. But once we got sick, that was also the end of it. So I'm wondering, why not just get it? Because I believe we had it. I never had an antibodies test. I'm down to take one. But yeah, I'm super appreciative for today's conversation. I will post her name again. The post for the Black woman may have discovered a cure to coronavirus. She's an amazing woman. And if you look her up yourself, Darnisha Grant Harrison, she is the president and the CEO of Ennaid. It's Ennaid Therapeutics. And she has been focusing on the Zika virus and other viruses that are transmitted through mosquitoes. And so now she is working with COVID, and they have a COVID therapeutic cure. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. Her and I began speaking in the beginning prior to me recording. And so you missed the intro of who she is and what it is that she does. And so I apologize for that. And that's why it was tinkered down below. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. I hope you have an amazing day. I'm just a little I'm a little anxious and I'm a little wary right now because I'm annoyed with how we as a society are processing things. And it's not highly publicized that there's a company with a cure, a therapeutic cure. There is not highly publicized that Gilead has, for those that are high risk COVID-19 infected, there's a therapeutic cure for them as well. And so when you look at reports and you look at the media and you look at the narrative is this daunting gray cloud over our entire normalcy. But then when you take a look at the Narnia side of it, there's a cure. There's a low mortality rate. There's, whether you're the 80% that could be asymptomatic or whether you're the 20% that's laying in a hospital bed, there is a cure. And for us to be focusing on, get this vaccine instead of, if you get it, there is a cure, live your life. I wish I was a stronger platform so I could reach more people and better inform them on the truth instead of having fear-based emotions run the decisions we make as families, as parents, as employees, and as employers and entrepreneurs. And so if you're watching this, please share it with your friends and your family that there is a cure, regardless if you're the 20 or if you're the 80, and that this is not a daunting, you're going to die, scary movie, but there is hope and there is light, and we just need to change the narrative and stop letting the media control and fearmonger us into decisions that aren't properly informed. I am Tayla Andre. I thank you for your time. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. If you know anybody looking to buy a house, I recently wrote a book, which is the step-by-step guide to people preparing for first-time home ownership. So you don't have to be wanting to buy a house or like in the middle of buying a house. It's like I'm preparing. Preparing could be 10 years from now. It could be 5 years from now. It could be 2 years from now. It could be 30 days from now. But this book sets out step by step to build your credit on your own without paying a credit restoration company, step by step on how to prepare you for first-time home ownership. And it has some amazing history facts as far as real estate and those that have been disenfranchised and have the ability of the American dream taken away from them. It's called Finally Home, and it's located on my website, TaylaAndre.com. I also have t-shirts, t-shirts for awakening your third eye, ride my root chakra, suck my sacral chakra. And then we have the Black woman soul naked, who is meditating with her chakras aligned, and she is soul naked. Her soul is for all to see. And when your chakras are aligned, it's a different type of vibration. It's a different type of frequency. And so I am Tayla Andre, TaylaAndre. Mwah. I hope you have an amazing day.